to crypto assets, more specifically DeFi and wrap tokens of all things. Now, I was going to initially go over what it is, that they are putting up on their website, putting forth as their guidance, ATO that is. But instead of that, what I probably want to point out is it appears as if in some aspects, if you really deeply think about it, logically analyze it, on-chain data, maybe you do that, but just logically think it through. It is almost as if unknowingly they're trying to tax to death the DeFi space. Now you go through and have a look, and they have a decent understanding on what DeFi is, as per their own guidance. And you see here, it's got lending and borrowing with DeFi. Basically, they talk about, exchanging crypto assets will trigger an event. What happens after you take the crypto out, will trigger an event. So my thoughts were, here's some examples. Again, this won't be as polished as some videos, but this will just be, as it is if you're familiar with my work. Now, the example here says, having previously bought 100x coin for $800, Sasha lends 50x coin, now worth $500, with a rate of return of 1%. Basically, under the terms of contract, Sasha doesn't maintain beneficial ownership of the X coin that he has lent, and it basically says we'll have to have a capital gain of $100 at time of lending. So, if you look at loan protocols, right, it's going to be interesting, because what if, for example, it goes on here, other examples, capital treatment of when you lend to a DeFi platform. So when you lend it, right, it's triggering a capital gain, as per this guidance, which makes logical sense. That's fine. But then what about if this is what I thought it should have been logically about keeping track of a cost base, and then once you actually dispose of it, then that triggers the capital gains tax. But what I mean by taxing to death is it's being taxed multiple times. It's the cherry's been bitten multiple times, because if you take your capital, you purchase your capital, so that's the cost base, and then depending on how you do this, because everyone's different, right? And then you say you engage with a DeFi platform of some sort or a lending protocol, you then would be taxed on a disposal when you send it to that particular address, which is strange, because then think about it, you pay tax, a gain, that theoretical gain, because it could be a loss, I guess, and you engage with it, then maybe you get some income out, and then you pull it out, and pulling it out apparently is now also triggers a capital event. And then if you want to engage in another protocol, you would then put that same amount of capital potentially, and put it into a different protocol, platform, whatever, and then you're taxed again. So like you have this same amount of tokens, right? In this hypothetical, in my mind, you have the same amount of tokens, and you're moving them, and because you're moving them, you're being taxed, for a gain or a loss, because it could be losses. So I guess it does make you think more before you do move anything. Again, most of this stuff is already on chain, and you can track and do this with almost all crypto software. Although I can only speak to a few that I've actually used. But my point is, if you are constantly being taxed for just moving it, it's going to discourage people. It might even scare people, put people off from engaging with any sort of innovation in this DeFi space. Although logically, I can see what they are trying to do, but when you really, really think about it, what's the end step? Because if you have one token and you've moved it around 100 times, and somehow if you're unlucky enough to incur lots of taxes, the tax you might pay on that could be worth more than that one token. And at the end of the day, once you pull it out of that protocol after moving around 100 times, you still only have that one token. How is that beneficial for anyone to engage in that, except for the recipient of the tax, which you could argue is the person, individual, because their taxes pay for, you know, the roads and stuff, and you can see the breakdown on the website, which is fine. But can you understand that logic? That's crazy if you think about it in that way. Now the next thing is the LP. Again, in a similar way. Again, this is generally speaking because because when you engage with certain protocols, this even says depending on its like the actual operation of the protocol, but they don't even break down to what if there's like fringe cases. Then what? This is general guidance. What if there's fringe cases on NFTs, for example? They do mention minting later on in the wrapping, which I found again confusing in terms of why they're doing it. But if you look at now liquidity pools, before I go into that further, so every time you deposit crypto assets capital into an LP, it's saying that's a capital, triggers a capital event. So you're disposing of it, and then if you pull it out, whether or not you've gained or lost is being triggered. So some software already does that, depending on how you've been doing it previously. I don't know what does that mean now for the people who've done, like, what if they've moved it around 100 times? What if they've moved around 1,000 times? That's a lot of, you know, calculations, a lot of potential gains, a lot of potential tax that you have to pay on something which in the end might actually be in a loss state because you might have less of the token, like through impermanent loss. So I thought, like I said, I thought the tax was supposed to be logical and fair for everyone. But I'm not sure if it's because they don't understand fully every single way that crypto could be used in terms of what if there's more than this one transaction. It's almost like they've simplified it to the point where, well, if this person has token A, then they move it here, get to token B, and get token B. This is the result. I don't think they've really thought about, like, if they've ever played around with that Scratch from MIT, the coding and the amount of variables you can have in places, and you can create whatever you want basically, but it's all built on a particular block. So they're almost saying, oh, here's one block, apply to everything. It's like, hang on, you might get a very different result because of the way you try and make your character. Now, it's very frustrating because I feel like they're focusing on trying to capture every single transaction as opposed to logically tracking a cost base. Like I said, if you have one token and you move that one token to LP, and then you have that same one token and you pull it out, why are you paying? Why is moving it triggering a tax event if at the end of the day you only have one token? Unless you're trying to absolutely stifle the movement of all cryptocurrency because you just want people to buy it and sit on it and do nothing with it and then sell it, and that's a capital gain or capital loss. I mean, yes, that's very easy accounting to do for that, very easy record keeping, but in the real world it can get very, very complex very quickly, and to provide these guidances I'm not so sure is helpful. I mean, on the other side, on the flip side, yes, it's good to have some guidance, but when you literally have on-chain data and you can track and trace everything, if you're going to come in and then say why and how you can actually use your own cryptocurrency, not saying so much, but it was like the mandates. It's like, there's no requirement that you have to get XYZ treatment, but if you don't, you can't work. So if the tax is coming in guiding you and saying, well, you can play in DeFi, but every single thing you do, the tax that you pay could be more than the amount, like it could be more trouble than it's worth in the end, which is not a very good message. I don't think is, to be sending. Now, I guess it's not ATO's role to send, messages, but it appears as if they haven't thought through how this could play out with more than, say, 3 transactions. Because like I said, we'll go to the wrap tokens now. If, for instance, you have, I'll just check this actually live. It is good. All right. If, for instance, you actually have a wrap token, and this is my confusion. Now I understand the capital gain, capital loss, and everything you had to adhere to, but you buy one token, right? It's worth $1, one token, $1, and you then wrap it to another token worth $1. Okay, so your cost base is what, $1? It's still worth $1, and you're triggering all these capital events along the way, which kind of makes sense to keep track of where you are, but it could be interpreted as you're just trying to make it extremely difficult to engage and use cryptocurrency. It's kind of frustrating. But when you have one, okay, that's probably a bad example, because one that's not moving is very easy to look after, I guess, manage, track, trace, whatever. But if you have one that's starting to move in terms of asset price, you have one particular token. That token can go up and down in price, yes? Oh, yes. Okay. So if you purchase the token at $10 and it goes up to $20, right? So you've still got the same one token, but it's fluctuating up and down in price. It's saying that when you're wrapping it, the same token, that's triggering a capital gain event. So it could go up 10, it could go down 10, it could be worth nothing, you wrap it. And so you've locked in a loss, okay. But then it's over on the other, wherever it's gone, because it's been wrapped. And so now you're like, is your goal to track the cost base of the token, or purely to get the tax, to lock in the tax, capital gain, capital loss? Because when you move the token across, it's basically in essence the same token. It's representative one-to-one. Why would you be chasing, the capital gain, capital loss? You're almost encouraging people to play capital gain, capital loss games. Whether or not they're doing it intentionally or unintentionally, just purely because the way you set up. Like, what if, for instance, people are wrapping tokens to go play in DeFi? You're then telling them, okay, you've got your token, it's gone up or down, so you've moved it, you've literally moved it, and that's locked in capital gains, capital losses. You've then created, you guys call it minting, which I agree with, because you mint it and the mint value is actually at what it's worth, right? That makes sense. But why are you going after the capital gain, capital loss before you mint it? That's insane. Because then if you continue on with my story timeline, you then mint it, okay, you locked it in at the capital gain, capital loss, that's the cost base of that particular token, right? And then you move it over to the DeFi protocol, a DeFi protocol, a vague general one that you explain, and say it's gone up or down a little bit, so you lock in some capital gain or losses along the way there. Yeah, okay, cool. And then once you've done that, then you say you're, I don't know, doing whatever, and then you get like one extra token of another type. So you have like one token that's worth, say, $10 because it's fluctuated up and down, it's going back to the mean, and it's like the same price, but you've locked in all these capital gains and losses along the way. And then you get one extra dollar because you locked it away at 1%, like 1% or something, for a year. And then you've done your capital, because it's over 12 months, you can get a 50% like capital, you get reduce the amount if it's a gain by 50% or whatever the rule is, and then so you've got this asset, you've got a capital asset with 50%. Like, can you see how confusing this gets? And then on top of that, then this is what I'm trying to get to. So then at the end of all of that, you decide, okay, instead of selling this asset in the wrap state, whatever new chain, I think I'm going to just unwrap it, go back to the native asset that it was, and then just hold it. And you still have this exact same amount of the token. So what you've done, in essence, you've made a little game, and you've said, okay, if you imagine a timeline, and you go, okay, I've started with A, and then I moved it to B, and capital gain, capital loss, because I wrapped it, and then that token just sits there, and now we go to C, and then C, we've like minted a new token. Okay, the cost base is locked in. That's fair enough to track and trace it. But the funny thing is, it's the exact same amount of the amount that you swapped it for. So then it questions, why did you bother locking in the capital gain or capital loss at B? So, okay, you're sitting at C with the fresh cost base of a new token, which is the representative of the original token. And then you get the token, and then you decide, okay, well, I don't want to just sit on this one token. I might go and, I don't know, engage with what you call DeFi in this guidance. And, you know, you send it to DeFi and like lock it away, because you hope that you're hoping you're actually engaging in DeFi, because what you don't explain here is like, what you guys, I'm pretty sure, would deem Celsius as DeFi, and we all saw what happened with Celsius. People gave up control of their coins to another like platform, another wallet, and they just went bankrupt, right? So assuming that it's an actual protocol that's like not going to go, it's not going to find a glitch in the system and just stop working and disappear with all your crypto. You're hoping that works. You're hoping that it's okay, and then you've got your DeFi token. Then you've locked it. Because you've moved it again. The price might have fluctuated, so then you've got a capital gain, capital loss based on C, which is based on B, which is started at A, and then you're sitting there. You're waiting. You know, maybe you do it for a day, maybe you do it for 10 years, maybe you do it for 15. I don't know. And then once you then you decide, okay, I want to take out my initial token. So that's step D. D to E. We want to take out the token now. So then you got to calculate the capital gain, capital loss on the token that started off with A, B, C, and D. And then, okay, fair enough, you might get something else, a reward from that or interest, which is fine. That's like pretty straightforward in some instances, like as you describe in your guide. So that's like some sort of income. But then you are left with the wrap token. And like I said, then you go back and then you go back to the same, well, assuming the same place, and then you unwrap it. And then you have the same amount of token, but maybe the price has gone up and down, maybe, who knows. But as you're moving it back across the place where you unwrapped it, you are then incurring capital gains and capital losses. And then what are you minting? Are you minting then your initial token that you already held and controlled that was locked into the contract? Where's your guidance there? Like, it's insane. Yeah, read the comments in the chat. Some things are not DeFi. But yeah, I just find it strange that, like, it's good. I guess it's good that there's, like I said, I guess it's good there's some guidance, right? Because some people might have never ever used crypto before, and they might be really new to the crypto space, and DeFi, they might have to look it up and find some quote unquote DeFi, right? But some other people might look at this and go, this is extremely basic. Basically a lot of crypto software has already been doing this for you, I would imagine. And I question the logic behind it, because as you saw in my very complex, I think somewhat complex example, when you talking about capital gains and capital losses on wrap tokens, you're kind of losing me, ATO, because, you know, in the end, after all that big journey, you've paid all these taxes or losses. What if you're at a net negative position? You know, for example, you could be, and then you've like done all this, and then, oh, okay, in the end, I've moved it back and I've still got the same one token, and I still haven't sold that. So how come I haven't sold it, but I've had to pay all these taxes along the way? You know, I question the logic. I question whether or not it's been double taxed severely, because what if someone's just moving it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth? According to this, you would have to be paying capital losses along the way, especially if it was just moving by a few cents here and there. So I don't know, kind of logical but illogical at the same time. It's crazy, you know. Yeah, and that could take place as well. Just reading that comment, no, that's a good point. Like, what if you just, what if purely they just move, what if purely they just wrap it because it's easy to deal with on a different chain, but then it's like just locked in your losses? It's like, okay, well, cool, I guess, if that's what you want. But like, wouldn't it be easier? Like, my thoughts are just, wouldn't it have been easier to in 2017, I was trying to point out, why not just tax it when you actually exit it from the system? Because basically it's like, oh, it's almost double dipping. If you go in, I tried to explain this. If you go in and you're taxing it all this time on every time you touch DeFi, capital gain here, capital loss there, moving it. Even if you make $1 million, right, and you haven't touched it, but you've paid all these taxes along the way, capital gain, capital loss, but then you move that $1 million worth of token out into into a some sort of state, right? Then you go to sell the $1 million worth of the token. At that point in time, shouldn't that be the triggering event because you've converted from like crypto to cash? Wouldn't that make more sense because it's entered into the fiat system? That's just my thinking anyway. Yeah, that is about it. All in all, I'm concerned. I haven't exactly thought it out. This article here does mention that it's sort of non-binding tax office guidance, but usually a lot of the stuff is okay, kind of. But when there's not guidance, what do you do? And then it also says this could also apply to transferring tokens to centralized exchanges, which could further, if you're new to crypto, it could further provide a hindrance to you to be like, well, I don't want to like buy, I don't want to buy crypto and then move it, and as soon as you move it, it's taxed. Like I said, if you were buying it and then you send it over to DeFi if you wanted to, or I'm not sure where I should be sending it though, but actual proper DeFi that's not going to like disappear and rug you, and then you're doing whatever over there and you're being taxed every single move, and then you're moving it back. It's almost double dipping, or you just really want to make some progress on tracking and tracing every crypto, and you want to be like supporting the like the Coinleys of the world, the cryptocurrency tracking software. Maybe you want to make a whole new industry out of accountants that can understand blockchain and accountants that can audit and do chain analysis. Maybe that's just maybe what you're looking for. But logically, I think it's entering into the realm of becoming more complex than it should be. Although logical and very easy to do under this guidance, it's still like for the average person, they're gonna be like, what am I doing here? Well, my thoughts are they're trying to apply stuff to like pony pictures. Like seriously, like this is when you mint. Okay, so I'm minting. I have a picture. We've heard this analogy before. I have a piece of paper, right? I draw a picture of a pony on it. Okay, I've minted a picture of a pony, and then what? I sell it to someone, and then because I sold it to someone, how much is that now worth? It's like, but I'm having to pay tax on that because that was a capital gain or something. Like what? And then then they sell it back to you, and then you sell it to someone else for less. It's like, I'm like, oh, what are you trying to do here? Like, I just think, like I said, I think it's getting to the point where it really should have been, you buy crypto, if it goes up, if it goes down, if you send it here, there, and everywhere, you track and trace it, you keep track of it, and maybe just focus on the cost base. And then when you sell it, you can go, okay, well, I made a gain or loss. But what they're trying to, like I said, I keep repeating myself, what they're trying to do, they're trying to say, okay, when you move it, we need to keep track of the cost base. It's like, but even the logic is, even if you only ever have one token and you move it, you wrap it, that's, a taxable event. And then you send it, that's a taxable event. And then you leave it and you take it out, that's taxable event. Then you send it somewhere else, that's a taxable event. Then you send it somewhere else, that's a taxable event. Then you take it back out, that's a taxable event. And then you're still left with that one picture, that one pony picture. And I'm like, you think that's logical? And then I'm using, like, I can use software to do all this and track and trace it, or you're like, why? Like, it's just crazy. Oh my god. Yeah. Imagine that. Like I said, imagine if what something that was once legal all of a sudden becomes illegal. Then what? What if they roll out a CBDC, CBDDC, whatever it is, central bank digital currency of some sort, and they say if you've ever touched DeFi, if you've ever touched cryptocurrency, we don't like it, and you can't have access to it. You either, I don't know, man. It's getting crazy. But I think the guidance is vague. And I think the more they try to provide more guidance, it makes it more complex and they just ruin DeFi more because they don't know 100% what they're doing. And the complexities of it are not as well thought out. And they can't put it into writing a simple plan for something that's extremely complex. You know, it's like, okay, here's the guide how you generally will change an oil filter on a car, right? Okay. And then you pull up and the Cybertruck pulls into your garage and you go, okay, I've got the guide for an oil filter change. What the fuck am I looking at here? You know? Or like, oh, okay, I have like a F-35 now. Okay, fuck, what do I do here? It's like you are trying to apply, I'm not sure. You're trying to tax things you're double dipping to start off with. You're making it way too complex and you're providing huge barriers to entry for a normal person. I would say a normal person because I would say I'm kind of abnormal because I like to think I understand a lot of this shit and it's relatively easy to understand what it is that they are even talking about here. But for someone brand new to this space, they'll be going, hang on, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And they'll be probably worried, you know? So that's about it. I'm convinced that retail miss what? Man, that could well be the case. And so they're encouraging that with this guidance. Like maybe that's the objective is to crack down on that because they see these huge losses or whatever and huge gains. But again, like what if you're actually just making insane amounts of money, right? Through a crypto that just moons hard as fuck. And then you're sitting on these gains. And then when you sell it, right? You sell it, then you lock in your profit. But this way, it's like saying if you've gone into a token, you held it for a long time and all of a sudden you left it in a DeFi pool, as soon as you move it out, you know, taxing. Not taxing in the way that, it's actually coming out, but capital gains, which can affect you overall. Because if your asset gains are too high for the year, then you're going to be paying tax next year, you know? But yeah, I think I'll close it there. I'm just not sure. Like, I'm really not sure why they're making it the way they are. If it was me, I would say, look, keep track of your cost bases, right? Because that's like the main point, I would say. I guess that's what they're trying to do with this, moving it between DeFi here, there, and everywhere. But I'm not sure they're understanding it properly. Maybe, but every now and then you do see these things. Sometimes they magically update. Like at one stage, believe it or not, Teen Time, I guess no one else is here. Oh, yeah, whoever else is here. At one stage, I'm not kidding. I didn't screenshot it, but it said, on the ATO website, I wish I screenshot it. It actually said, keep a copy of your seed phrase, and if in the case of an audit or something like that, provide them with the seed phrase. And I was like, did I just read that correctly? Like that was what I'm thinking is taking place here. They're not sure what's going on, so they're trying to provide guidance to, try and protect people. I'm not sure, maybe, but they remove that very quickly because I think they realize that, hang on, if people are providing their seed phrases to other people, like, provide your seed phrase to your local accountant and then the accountant runs off with all the money. It's like, hang on, maybe we should remove this off of our guidance, So yeah, very, very, very strange. Um, yeah, there's some fringe cases I could think of, and there's also, like I said, NFTs. When you mint them just randomly. But yeah, all right. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the thumbs up. We have to watch this space because I'm not sure. Like, yeah, I think this one here, CoinDesk, they were talking about it. They've got a consensus. They've got a paper with some feedback notes requested, but that's more along the lines of centralized exchanges may require licenses. Now, some of them here in Australia already do have like they have a license of sort, but I'm not sure if it's the same type of license. And they're usually linked up with Blockchain Australia in terms of trying to, but then again, I'm not sure how decentralized Blockchain Australia is. Maybe it's just a government arm sector, who knows. Similarly with the crypto software, you know, how do you know some of them aren't working with the relevant ATOs of the world, you know, to try and nut out what it is they should be doing? Because I think they should be, because they would actually be able to see on chain what is actually going on, you know, and what is logical. So maybe they should just be like, look, use a software if you want, because it's probably the easiest way, unless you have a super clean layout. Like you can get crazy and hectic with DeFi, but if it was just super clean, you probably might not even need it. You'd be like, I bought from here and I sold here. That's what it should be, man. Like, I bought here, I sold this here, and I did all this shit here, but then in the end, I sold this amount for money, and this is how much I paid. But yeah. But in saying that, I can see the benefit of keeping track of your capital gains and capital losses, because that's what I do very stringently myself. And it's good that you can take advantage of infinite capital losses in terms of time frame within your lifespan. So that's kind of good to know. But the way they're laying this out, it's just very it might be off-putting for some people, especially the new to crypto space. Now, what else? Yeah, updates. It's guidance, including wrap tokens. I think they got the wrap token thing completely wrong. What else? They mentioned here there's some draft legislation coming through. So hopefully we can. Here we go. So Australian Board of Taxation is scheduled to give a new review on tax treatment of digital assets, which include comments on capital gains tax to the government by February 29th. So I think I was able to provide some feedback to that one. There was one I missed out on. There was one that I think 47 people in all of Australia provided a comment to. So we just got to hope that 46 of them weren't, like, you know, anti-crypto, because that can happen. Like, as you see with, you know, things like various topics, there's always two sides to the story. So whatever you're doing, there's probably someone else doing exactly the same in the opposite, but probably twice, 3 times as hard as you, and better. So that's something to be aware of. This is the actual ATO's you know, the guidance for decentralized finance and wrapping crypto. At least it's good to see that they've said not to, you know, give your seeds out to people. That's good to see. That's some progress, good work. Yeah, I wish I could provide some feedback how to fix this, because I see issues. What else? That's about it. Yeah, so that's relatively new. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll close this out here. In closing, boating accident. Lol. All right, free speech signing out.